Hey guys, Spudfunk here again for yet another interesting life story. So this story is actually pretty recent. It's about just over a year ago from today. So it was last spring. Now, so it's the beginning of spring and all the snow's melted and my friends and I want to go out and have our first little lake fire / party thing. So we get some booze. We go out and head to a nearby lake. It's about 20 minutes out of town. It's a lake where everybody goes. Now, this is the shitty part. So we get there after driving for about 20 to 30 minutes, and we realize that you're actually not allowed to have fires at this beach. Like, they're highly prohibited. So we're sitting there for a bit, kind of disappointed, not knowing what to do. And we're actually debating whether we should leave or stay, maybe go to another lake. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, I do have an idea.
Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
Because, you see, my family has friends that own a cabin on this lake. Now, my family gets invited to their cabin all the time throughout summer, and they always let us go there. But in my head, I was thinking, okay, they're definitely not going to be there at this time because it's too early in the year, and I decided to make the decision that was very, very irresponsible and just, like, stupid. I decide to tell my friends that, look, guys, we don't have to leave. I know a cabin we can go to where we can have a fire. We'll have our own little private area. There's a picnic table there. It's got its own little beach. It'll be dope, right? So then, of course, my friends are like, wait, you had a cabin on this lake? Why didn't you say so? I'm like, no, but my parents, they're really good friends with my parents, and they said that we could use the cabin whenever we wanted, like, feel free to use it. Now, of course, that was a complete lie. I completely lied about that. They did not say that. The part that was true is that we go to their cabin all the time when they invite us, but never do we just, like, go there and show up and invite ourselves over, right? Especially when they're not there. But I didn't tell my friends that, of course. So after some discussing, we come to the conclusion that we were going to go to this cabin. Now, my friends started to notice that I didn't know my way there very well because I kept directing them in wrong directions, and we were having a hard time finding the place. Like, we kept making the wrong turns. It actually took us like 30 minutes to actually find the place, but I kept reassuring my friends that we were allowed to be there. That was a huge mistake. So eventually we find the place. Now, this is where it gets really bad. We actually find the place, and we notice there's a big gate blocking off the driveway from the side road. And everybody's like, well, what should we do? And I'm like, you know what? Let's just park my car over down the street, and then we'll hop the fence. Now, this is straight up trespassing what we're doing, of course. But I still just, I didn't think anything bad would happen. I was like, you know what, let's just do it. We want to have a little, lake party, have some alcohol, get a fire going, have a great time, So we hop the fence and head down these stairs. There's like probably about 100 stairs that go down towards the lake, and we go over by the picnic table, set all our stuff down, our booze, hot dogs, marshmallows. We had a bunch of stuff, right? And we actually start getting a fire going. Now, it was a bit difficult to get the fire going because there was still a bit of snow, and the fire pit was kind of like wet. And we were actually using their firewood. They had a bunch of firewood under this shelter. We were actually using their firewood, guys. So we're each about 2 beers in, and I noticed that the neighbors are actually coming out. So I was like, shit, the neighbors are here. And I'm just thinking in my mind, what if they tell them, right? Or they come over and ask who we are, because I know that they know the people who own the cabin, and they're going to be wondering who the hell we are. A bunch of, teenagers show up, and there's no sign of the owners. That's going to raise some questions, no doubt. Now, I'm just looking over at them, freaking out in my head, but trying to stay calm for my friends, and my friends are just acting like, there's nothing wrong because I didn't tell them, right? And they're being loud and obnoxious, and the people over next door down the shoreline are also having a fire, and they're just looking at us, like giving us this weird look, and I'm like, shit, this isn't good. Now, eventually the people down the shoreline stopped looking at us, and I started to calm down. I was like, all right, so maybe we aren't going to get in trouble. Everything's starting to go good again, and we're about 4 beers in, sitting around the fire, and this is when it happens. I hear a vehicle pull up behind the cabin, which is up the stairs. You can't actually see it, so I wasn't for sure certain if it was them or not, but I'm still thinking to myself, no way, they don't come here at this time of the year. And it was a weekday too, there's no way, but you know, I might as well go and check. So I tell my friends, I'm just going to go and check. I thought I heard somebody pull up, and they're like, okay. So I'm walking up the stairs, and I peek around the corner of the cabin, and what do I see? I see a yellow pickup truck parked in the little parking spot behind the cabin, and I see the guy that owns the cabin and his wife, and they're unlocking the gate, and I'm just like, oh shit. So they still haven't even noticed that we're there, and I'm like, oh man, they didn't notice me either. And I'm just like, I gotta go and tell my friends, we gotta get out of here, like put out the fire, you know, grab all the booze and run down the shoreline, because I do not want to be caught, because that would be obviously awkward as hell, like awkward to the max, and I would feel so bad. So I bolted around the corner, guys, and I start sprinting down the stairs, and I just want to yell to my friends, put out the fire, get the booze, get out of here. And I notice that they're not looking at me. They're looking at the fire and looking at their beer, and they're not looking at me. And I can't yell to put out the fire, because then the two people that actually own the cabin would hear me yelling, and then they would look around the corner and see me. So I'm waving my arms, trying to get their attention, but they're not looking over, so they can't see. And I'm running down what seems to be about like 100 set of stairs. I finally get to them and say quietly what the problem is, but by the time I actually tell them, it's too late, because I notice that they are coming around the corner and walking down the stairs and shaking their heads like we were busted. There was nothing we could do. We couldn't put out the fire, we couldn't clean up all the booze. They were coming down the stairs and they saw us. There was no escape at this point, guys. So they come down and they confront us, of course, asking what we're doing here, and they're like, what's going on here? And I'm like, we really wanted to have like a fire, and we weren't allowed to have a fire over there, so we came over here. I'm really sorry. And like, they're just looking at me and shaking their heads. I could tell that the guy's wife was especially pissed off. She had this really angry look on her face. And then they walked over and talked in private, and I could tell they were talking about us, trying to decide what to do. And then they came over and they told us to leave, and they're like, all right, I think this is best if we don't tell your parents. So I was like, oh, thank you. So they actually didn't tell my parents, luckily. They kept the whole thing a secret, but I just feel horrible about this, because I mean, like, I pretty much just invited me and my friends over to their cabin and hopped over their fence to go and have like a little lake party on their property using their firewood without their permission. Now, to this day, I still see them every once in a while because they're really good friends with my parents, but man, do I not like to be around them, because every time I'm around them now, I just feel horrible and I feel awkward, and yeah, it's just no good, guys. Like, I really wish I could rewind time and undo that, because I just feel like a really bad person. I would say that this is probably one of the worst things I've ever done. I mean, like, when you think about it, it doesn't sound that bad, but then when you really think about it, I mean, like, I brought my friends and partied at their cabin without their permission. We hopped over their fence and made ourselves at home. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the video, remember to subscribe if you haven't already for more interesting life stories. Other than that, peace out.